The first time I saw my wedding dress on another woman, everyone clapped. Not politely. Not by accident. They clapped the way people clap when they have been waiting for the cruel part of a show to begin. I stood in the doorway of Fiora Bridal with my purse still hanging from one shoulder, rainwater slipping from the ends of my hair onto the polished marble floor. The boutique smelled like lilies, steamed satin, and expensive perfume. My mother was seated on the cream sofa with her legs crossed, holding a glass of sparkling water like she had hosted the whole thing herself. My future mother-in-law sat beside her. Two bridesmaids stood near the mirror with their phones raised. My aunt pressed a hand over her mouth, but she did not look away. And on the pedestal, in the dress I had designed from my grandmother's lace, stood my younger sister, Chloe. The dress fit her almost perfectly because someone had made sure it did. The long sleeves hugged her arms. The low pearl buttons ran down her back. The veil that had been wrapped in tissue in my closet for 6 months was pinned into her hair. My grandmother's lace, the last thing she had touched before she died, rested against Chloe's shoulders while my mother smiled up at her like she was looking at the daughter she had always wanted to see as a bride. Chloe turned slowly in front of the three-way mirror. She saw me in the reflection and widened her eyes, pretending surprise. "Oh," she said softly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You came early." I had not come early. I had come on time. The appointment had been under my name for 3 months. My mother set down her glass and sighed. "Claire, don't make that face." Chloe was only helping us see the full look. "You were running late again." A few people shifted. Nobody corrected her. I looked at the clock behind the reception desk. It was 10:59. My appointment was for 11. Daniel, my fiancé, stood near the fitting room curtain with his hands in his pockets. He did not look ashamed. He looked inconvenienced, as if my arrival had interrupted a conversation he had hoped to finish before I got there. I looked at him, then at my sister wearing my dress. "Take one more photograph," I said. The room quieted. My mother blinked. "What?" "Take one more photograph," I repeated, my voice even. "Make sure the dress, the veil, and the mirror are all visible." Chloe's smile faltered for the first time. That was the first moment they realized I was not going to cry. The second came when Daniel said my name in that low warning tone he used when he wanted me to save him from embarrassment. "Claire, don't start." I did not raise my voice. I did not step toward Chloe. I did not ask why my sister was wearing my wedding dress, why my mother was smiling, why my bridesmaids were recording, or why my fiancé looked less like a guilty man than a man waiting for paperwork to catch up with a decision he had already made. I just looked at the dress. 6 months earlier, I had sat in that same boutique with my grandmother's old veil folded in my lap. She had left it to me in a cedar box with a note that said, "For the woman who keeps standing even when nobody notices." The lace was yellowed in places, too fragile for careless hands. But the designer had promised to preserve it, not copy it, not rent it, not display it. Preserve it. There had been a contract. 6 pages, initialed in 7 places, signed at the bottom by me. The dress on Chloe's body was not inventory. It was not a sample. It was not family property. It was a commissioned garment created from a dead woman's lace, paid from my account, protected under my name, and scheduled to be released only to me. My mother stood, her smile tightening. "This is exactly why we didn't tell you. You always make things so cold." It was supposed to be a sweet surprise. "For whom?" I asked. No one answered. Chloe touched the veil as if she owned the memory attached to it. "Mom thought it might help you see that the dress needs a softer bride. You know, someone who looks happy in it." One of the bridesmaids gave a nervous laugh and immediately looked down at her phone. Daniel finally stepped forward. "We need to talk." "We are talking," I said. He rubbed his jaw. "Not here. Here seems appropriate." My mother made a sharp sound. "Claire, don't humiliate your sister in public." That almost made me smile. I had walked into a room where my sister was wearing my dress, where my family had gathered before my appointment, where cameras were already recording, and somehow I was the one being warned not to humiliate anyone. Chloe lifted her chin. "I didn't ask for this to get dramatic." "No," I said. You asked for the dress. Her cheeks colored. Daniel looked at my mother, then at me. That small glance told me more than any confession could have. They had rehearsed something. Maybe not the exact words, but the order. First, make me look unstable. Second, make me look selfish. Third, present the betrayal as something already agreed upon by everyone reasonable in the room. My mother took that part. She always did. Your sister and Daniel have been honest with us, she said. Painfully honest. They didn't want to hurt you, but feelings changed. You have been so focused on contracts, deposits, seating charts, payments. A wedding is supposed to be about love. There it was. Not just the dress. The bride. I heard my aunt whisper, "Oh my God." But she still did not move. Daniel looked at the floor. Chloe looked at me through the mirror, wearing my gown and trying to arrange her face into tragedy. "We didn't plan it," she said. "It just happened." I looked at the pearl buttons down her spine, at my grandmother's lace under her hands, and the room seemed to become very still. There are moments when pain is so sharp it becomes clean. It does not make you scream. It makes everything around you precise. The white orchids on the counter, the silver pins in the seamstress's wrist cushion, the red recording light on my cousin's phone, the contract folder on the boutique manager's desk with my name printed on the tab. My mother waited for me to break. I did not. I took my phone from my purse and opened my calendar. "The wedding is in 12 days, I said. Daniel flinched. My mother frowned. "Claire, the venue is under my contract. The photographer is under my contract. The florist, the caterer, the quartet, the rentals, the rehearsal dinner, and this dress are under my contract." I looked at Chloe in the mirror. "Which part did you think would transfer when you put it on?" Chloe stopped touching the veil. Daniel's eyes hardened. "You can't punish everyone, because you're hurt." "I am not punishing anyone. I am describing ownership." My mother stepped toward me as if I were 10 years old again and she could pull me out of a room by the elbow. "You will not ruin your sister's happiness over a dress." I looked at her hand before it reached me. She stopped. "Take it off," I said to Chloe. My sister laughed too quickly. "Are you serious? Take off my dress." The boutique manager, Marin, who had been silent behind the desk, moved at last. Her face had gone pale. She knew the contract better than anyone in that room, because she had signed it too. "Mrs. Vale," she said carefully to my mother, "we do need to pause the fitting." My mother turned on her. "We paid for this appointment." "No," I said. "I paid for this appointment." Marin swallowed. That was when I saw it on the side table. A printed release form with my name typed on the client line and Chloe's name written in pen above it. The signature box was blank. They had not gotten to the final step. They had dressed her first, staged the humiliation first, gathered the witnesses first. Then they had planned to pressure me into signing away the dress, the wedding, and my own dignity, while everyone watched. I took a photo of the form. Daniel saw me do it. "What are you doing?" "Keeping the record clear." My mother hissed, "Stop acting like a lawyer. This is family." "That," I said, "is the problem." Chloe looked suddenly smaller inside the gown. "Not sorry, just less certain." I turned toward the door. Daniel grabbed my wrist. It was not hard enough to bruise. It was hard enough for the room to see. "Don't walk out like this," he said. I looked down at his hand until he let go. "You should have taken the photograph," I said. "It would have helped you remember the moment clearly." Then I left them standing in the boutique, surrounded by mirrors that made their betrayal look larger than it was. Outside, the rain had stopped. I sat in my car with both hands on the steering wheel and waited until my breathing slowed. My phone buzzed before I had even started the engine. My mother's first message was not an apology. "Don't be cruel. Your sister is fragile." Daniels arrived 30 seconds later. "We need to handle this maturely. You can't hold the vendors hostage." Then Chloe posted a photograph. She cropped out the boutique manager, cropped out the release form, cropped out my face in the doorway. She left herself in the dress, glowing under soft lights, one hand on the veil. The caption read, "Sometimes love finds the person brave enough to wear it." Within 5 minutes, relatives began reacting with hearts. Within 10, someone wrote, "Finally." Within 15, my mother's sister commented, "Some women are brides. Some women are accountants." I sat in the car and looked at that sentence until it stopped hurting and started teaching me. They had always liked the version of me who paid quietly. I was the daughter who handled hospital invoices, taxes, late mortgage notices, insurance calls, school fees for cousins, emergency repairs, and the quiet envelopes my mother called temporary help. I booked the appointments. I negotiated with contractors. I made sure birthdays happened, and funerals were dignified, and holidays looked effortless. I was useful as long as I did not need anything back. Chloe was allowed to be delicate. I was required to be reliable. I did not reply. Silence was the only thing they had never known how to use against me. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table and pulled up the folder named Wedding. Final. I had made it because I was careful. Because I had learned young that family promises evaporated unless they were attached to receipts. Venue contract. Caterer contract. Florist contract. Photographer contract. String quartet deposit. Rehearsal dinner agreement. Hotel block guarantee. Bridal boutique commission. Every document had the same client name. Mine. Every payment had come from the same checking account. Mine. The boutique contract was the one I read twice. The clause was plain. The commissioned garment incorporated client, supplied heirloom material and could not be altered. Assigned, transferred, modeled, photographed for promotional or personal publication, or released to any person other than the contracting client, without written authorization from the contracting client. At the bottom, beneath Marin's signature, was mine. I downloaded the security clip Marin had emailed me after the first fitting, back when she had called the dress a museum piece with a heartbeat. Then I sent her one message. "Please preserve all footage from today's appointment. Do not release the dress. Do not accept transfer instructions from anyone but me." She replied within 2 minutes. "I understand. I am so sorry." At 2:17 p.m., Daniel called. He let it ring. At 2:19 he called again. He let it ring. At 2:22, he sent a voice message. His voice sounded tired, not ashamed. "Claire, this got out of hand. Chloe shouldn't have posted the photo. But you also have to understand how hard this is for everyone. The venue is 12 days away. People have flights. My parents have told guests. We can talk about reimbursement later, but don't blow up an entire wedding because you feel embarrassed." I played it twice. Not because I needed to hear it, because my lawyer did. I sent everything to Ada Kim, my attorney, and waited for her call. Ada called me after 20 minutes. "Do you want revenge?" she asked, "or do you want control?" I looked at my grandmother's cedar box on the shelf by the window. Control. The first step was simple. We sent written notices to every vendor confirming that no contract could be transferred, modified, or used by Daniel Vale, Chloe Mercer, my mother, or any representative without my written approval. The second step was even simpler. I revoked Daniel's access to the shared wedding account. There had never been much of his money in it. That was the part nobody in his family knew. At 4:03 p.m., he called again. This time I answered. "Did you freeze the account?" he demanded. "I removed your viewing access." "That is the same thing." "It is not. You never had spending access." There was a pause. In that pause, I could hear him understanding how much of his confidence had been borrowed from my silence. "Claire, don't do this. My parents are already humiliated." "They were not humiliated this morning. Because this morning you hadn't made it ugly." I looked at Chloe's post still open on my screen. "Daniel, you replaced me with my sister while she was wearing my wedding dress." Ugly was already in the room. He lowered his voice. "You always have to win." "No. I always have to clean up after people who think winning means taking what I paid for." He hung up. By evening, the family had chosen its story. I was unstable. I was greedy. I was punishing Chloe for being loved. The next morning, my cousin sent me a screenshot from my mother's post. "Family is not about contracts. Family is about grace. Today I am praying for my daughter Claire, Who has forgotten that love cannot be owned? Below it, people I had fed, helped, driven, paid for, and forgiven, wrote sympathetic comments for her. Stay strong, Marianne. Some daughters only care about money. Poor Chloe. I did not comment. I printed the boutique contract instead. Then I printed the bank statements. Then I printed every payment I had made on my mother's behalf for the last 4 years. The moral part of the betrayal came 2 days later. Marin called me from the boutique. Her voice shook. Claire, I need you to know something before you hear it from someone else. Your mother came in yesterday with Chloe and Daniel. They asked me to alter the dress to Chloe's measurements and prepare it for release next Friday. I refused. Then your mother said you had already agreed privately, but were being dramatic in public. Did she put that in writing? She sent an email. Forward it to Ada. There was a small silence. There's more. Chloe told me your grandmother wanted both of you to share the veil. She said you were keeping it from the family out of spite. For a moment I could not speak. My grandmother had left the veil to me because I had been the one beside her hospital bed when everyone else said it was too hard to watch. I remembered my grandmother's fingers around mine, paper light and warm. Promise me you won't let them tell you love means disappearing. I had promised. Then I had spent years disappearing in practical ways. I paid my mother's heating bill and called it responsibility. I covered Chloe's credit card when she cried and called it compassion. I helped Daniel settle a tax penalty he called bad timing, and never mentioned it again. I handled his mother's medication refills, his father's birthday dinner, his sister's airport pickup. I planned my own wedding around everyone else's preferences, because it was easier than conflict. But they had taken my grandmother's lace. That was the line. Ada's office was quiet when I brought her the cedar box. She read my grandmother's note without touching the veil. Do you want the dress back? She asked. Yes. Do you want the wedding canceled? Yes. Do you want them publicly corrected? I thought of my aunt's comment. Some women are brides. Some women are accountants. Only where they lied publicly. Ada nodded. Then we do this clean. No speeches. No drama. We let the contract speak. That became the plan. For 3 days. They escalated because they thought silence meant weakness. The venue called me immediately. Miss Mercer, the coordinator said. We received a request to update signage and seating under Chloe Mercer's name. We need written confirmation from you. You do not have it. Understood. If anyone asks, the event remains under my contract until I cancel it or appear in person. No substitute bride. No substitute groom. No release of paid services. Understood. Please prepare a final ledger. Another silence. Are you canceling? Not yet. Because timing mattered. So I waited. That was the hardest part. The hardest part was watching people I had protected become bold in their version of me. On Thursday, 1 week before the wedding date, my mother hosted a family dinner. She did not invite me. My cousin did by accident, forwarding the calendar link because she thought I should know what was happening. The dinner was at my mother's house, the one I had helped save twice after my father's death. I arrived 20 minutes late and stood in the doorway while they were eating roast chicken under the chandelier I had paid to repair. Conversation died table by table. My mother rose slowly. Claire, this is not a good time. It seems like a family meeting. Chloe was seated beside Daniel at the head of the table. My chair, the one near the kitchen because I was always getting up to serve, had been removed. That hurt more than I expected. Not because I wanted the chair. Because even in their betrayal, they understood symbolism. My mother said, We are trying to heal. Without me. Daniel set down his fork. You chose contracts over family. I looked at him across my mother's table. No. I chose contracts after family chose theft. A few people inhaled. My mother snapped. Enough. You will not come into my home and accuse your sister. Your home? The words left my mouth before I planned them. My mother froze. That was the first crack in her performance. Because she knew. Most of the family did not. When my father died, I had saved that house from foreclosure and refinanced the debt under an agreement Ada drafted. She had defaulted twice. I had never enforced it. I had kept her in her home because I believed mercy meant absorbing the consequences quietly. I did not mention the house in front of everyone. I did not need to. My mother's face had already changed. Leave, she said. I will. Daniel stood. For once, stop threatening people with paperwork. I looked at Chloe. Are you planning to wear my dress next Saturday? She smiled because she still had an audience. I'm planning to wear the dress, Daniel says. Looks like it was made for me. It wasn't. Then maybe it found its way to the right person. My cousin looked away. My aunt stared at her plate. My mother said, Claire, you are making yourself look pathetic. I nodded once. Then you should all be very comfortable seeing me leave. I walked out without raising my voice. Behind me, I heard Daniel say, She won't do anything. She needs to feel important. That sentence became useful later. By Saturday morning, the day of the wedding that was no longer mine, the story had become almost theatrical. The venue garden had been decorated before sunrise because Daniel's mother insisted everything remain perfect. White chairs, pale blue ribbons, an arch covered in roses. A sign near the entrance read Daniel and Chloe in gold lettering, printed over the date I had chosen. I arrived at 10, 40 inches a navy dress, not white. Ada arrived beside me in a gray suit with a leather folder. Marin arrived 5 minutes later carrying the original boutique contract and wearing the expression of a woman who had decided professional fear was less important than professional survival. Guests were already gathering near the garden. Some recognized me and went still. Others whispered. Phones appeared discreetly, then less discreetly. My mother saw me first. She was standing near the front row, wearing lavender silk and the relieved smile of someone who believed the dangerous person had finally come to beg. Claire, she said, moving quickly toward me. Not today. Today is exactly the day. Her eyes flicked to Ada. Who is this? My attorney. My mother's mouth tightened. Daniel came from the side corridor with his tie half done. For 1 second I saw panic. Then he covered it with annoyance. You have got to be kidding me. No, Ada said. She is not. Daniel ignored her and looked at me. If you ruin this, there is no coming back. There was no coming back when you let my sister wear my grandmother's veil. His jaw worked. Behind him, Chloe appeared at the top of the small staircase leading from the bridal suite. She was wearing my dress. For the second time, the room seemed to narrow around a single image. The lace. The buttons. The veil. My sister stood in sunlight with my grandmother's memory arranged over her hair, and for a moment she looked almost beautiful. Not because she was innocent, because stolen things often shine brightest right before the owner names them. Guests turned. A hush moved through the entry hall. Chloe lifted her chin. You came to watch? I came to sign. She blinked. The venue coordinator, Elise, approached from the office with a tablet in her hands. She looked nervous but steady. Ada opened her folder. Before any ceremony proceeds, we need to resolve the unauthorized use of contracted services and commissioned property. Miss Claire Mercer is the sole contracting client for today's event. No transfer has been authorized. Daniel laughed once, sharp and false. It's a family misunderstanding. Ada handed Elise a document. This is the written cancellation and non-transfer notice. Effective immediately. The first visible consequence was not dramatic. It was administrative. Elisa tapped her tablet. The gold welcome sign on the digital screen behind the reception desk went blank. Then the schedule disappeared. Then the vendor check-in list changed from active to canceled. Small things, on a screen. In front of 50 people. But the silence that followed felt heavier than shouting. Daniel stepped toward Elise. You can't just cancel a wedding while guests are here. Elise's voice shook, but she did not back away. The contracting client can. The event was never transferred to you. His mother gasped. We paid for guests to fly in. Ada looked at her. You paid for flights. Miss Mercer paid for the venue. A murmur moved through the lobby. My mother tried to laugh. This is absurd. Families share costs. Claire is emotional. She signed things because we asked her to handle details. Ada removed another page. Bank records show all deposits and final balances were paid from Miss Mercer's individual account. The wedding account was not jointly funded. Mr. Vale had viewing access only. Daniel went red. Chloe looked at him. That look told me he had lied to her too. My mother recovered first. She always did. A decent sister would let this go. I looked at her. A decent mother would have stopped her from putting on the dress. For the first time, no one rushed to defend her. Maren stepped forward then. Her hands trembled around the boutique folder. The gown also cannot be worn in any ceremony today, she said. It is a commissioned garment incorporating heirloom lace supplied by Miss Mercer. The boutique contract prohibits transfer, assignment, public use, photography, or release to another wearer without her written authorization. We do not have that authorization. Chloe's face drained. It's a dress, she whispered. It is not your dress, Maren said. My aunt, the one who had commented about accountants, lowered her phone. Maren held up the signature page. It was visually simple. No legal explanation needed. My typed name, my signature, my initials in blue ink. The boutique contract had her signature, Maren said. Louder now. Only hers. That was the moment the story broke open. Not because every guest understood the details. They did not need to. They understood the picture. A bride in a stolen dress. A groom trying to use another woman's paid wedding. A mother calling theft compassion. A sister standing in lace that had never belonged to her, while the actual owner stood calm enough to let paper say what grief could not. Daniel turned on me then, but his voice was lower because the audience had shifted. Claire, please. We can pay you back. Just let the ceremony happen. There it was. The first please. Not when I walked into the boutique. Not when Chloe posted the photo. Not when they replaced my name. Only after the structure stopped holding them. No, I said. Chloe gripped the skirt. You would really do this to me? I looked at the veil. Take it off. This time, nobody laughed. My mother stepped between us. Claire, think about how this looks. I have. People are watching. They were watching when you clapped. That landed. Ada handed Daniel a final sheet. Additionally, Miss Mercer is requesting immediate reimbursement for unauthorized charges made after notice was given. The hotel block upgrade, revised signage, and floral modifications were requested in Chloe Mercer's name but billed to Miss Mercer's active vendor accounts. Those charges have been reversed where possible and documented where not. Daniel looked at Chloe again. Chloe looked at my mother. My mother looked at the floor. That was how the false hierarchy collapsed. Not with a scream, but with everyone looking for the person who had promised the theft. Would be easy. Outside, guests began leaving the garden. Chairs sat in perfect rows facing an empty arch. The string quartet packed their instruments because their contract had been canceled. The caterer closed silver lids over untouched food. The photographer stopped taking pictures when Ada reminded him the event release had never transferred. Social collapse is quieter than people imagine. It sounds like murmured excuses. Car doors. An aunt saying, I didn't know. A cousin whispering, but Claire paid for all of it? A mother-in-law calling her husband in a shaking voice. A groom loosening his tie because he cannot breathe inside the image he created. Chloe disappeared into the bridal suite with Maren and 2 female staff members to remove the dress. When the door closed, my knees almost gave out. Ada saw it and moved slightly in front of me, blocking the view of the guests. Breathe, she said. I did. 5 minutes later, Maren emerged carrying the gown in a protective garment bag. The veil was folded over her arm. Chloe came after her in a robe, mascara streaking her cheeks. For 1 second, she looked like my little sister again. The girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. The girl I had defended when teachers called her dramatic. The girl I had rescued from overdraft fees, bad boyfriends, and our mother's need to turn softness into currency. Then she looked at me with pure hatred and said, You were always jealous of me. The last thread snapped very quietly. No, I said. I was always responsible for you. You confused the two. She slapped me. It was fast. Loud. Public. The room went dead silent. Daniel reached for her too late. My mother said, Chloe, in a voice that carried fear, not discipline. I touched my cheek. It stung. But strangely, I felt steadier. Because now everyone had seen the thing my family had spent years polishing into something prettier. Entitlement, when denied, does not become love. It becomes violence. Ada stepped forward. We are done here. And we were. The financial damage came over the next 2 weeks. My mother's social circle fractured first. The people who had commented about Grace began deleting their comments. My aunt sent me a message that said, I didn't know the whole story. I did not answer. Knowing the whole story had not been required to stay silent instead of mocking me. The house came later. I did not throw my mother out. That would have been the revenge version. Control was simpler and colder. Ada sent a notice enforcing the original occupancy agreement. My mother had 60 days to cure the defaults, assume costs independently, or move to a smaller rental using her own income. She called me crying the night she received it. For the first time in my life, I did not let crying become an instruction. Claire, she said, breath-breaking, you can't take my home. I stood in my apartment, looking at my grandmother's veil folded safely in the cedar box. I am not taking your home. I am stopping myself from paying for a home where I was erased. I am your mother. Yes. Does that mean nothing? I closed my eyes. It meant everything. That was why it cost me so much. She waited for me to soften. I did not. Daniel tried once more. He looked smaller, not thinner, not broken, just smaller than the role I had given him in my life. We sat in the lobby because I would not take him upstairs. I made a mistake, he said. Yes, Chloe and I are not together. I almost laughed, but not because it was funny. That happened quickly. He rubbed his face. You don't understand. It got complicated. It was always complicated. You only noticed when I stopped simplifying it for you. He leaned forward. I loved you. You loved being rescued, I said. You just called it love because that sounded better. He stared at me for a long time. Are you ever going to forgive me? Probably. Hope moved across his face. I let it pass before I finished. But forgiveness is not access. He left without another word. 6 months later, the dress still hung in its garment bag, untouched. It sold for more than I had paid. I used the money to fund 3 emergency grants through Ada's office. Small ones. Rent. Legal consults. A storage unit for a woman leaving quietly. Practical things. The kind nobody claps for, but someone survives because they exist. My mother moved to a smaller apartment across town. Chloe stayed with a friend. Then another friend. Daniel took a job in another state after his parents stopped covering the difference between his image and his income. People told me I had won. That word never felt right. Winning suggests a game. What happened was not a game. It was a structure finally telling the truth after people had lied on top of it for years. The last time I saw my family together was not in court, not at a wedding, not at a holiday table. It was at my grandmother's grave on the anniversary of her death. I went early, before anyone else arrived, and placed white lilies beside the stone. My mother came while I was leaving. Chloe was with her. They stopped when they saw me. For a few seconds, none of us spoke. Chloe looked at my left hand, maybe expecting a ring, maybe hoping not to see one. There was none. My mother looked older. Without the house, without the gatherings, without me quietly arranging the background of her life, she seemed uncertain of where to stand. Claire, she said. Her voice was not cruel this time. That did not make it safe. I nodded. Chloe's eyes dropped to the flowers. Grandma would hate this. I looked at her, and for once I did not feel the need to correct the whole sentence. Grandma hated people using love as a leash, I said. My mother flinched. I walked past them without waiting for a reply. I understood better now. Dignity was not endurance. Dignity was refusing to let people keep living inside benefits they had turned into weapons. I did not get married that Saturday. I did not make a speech. I did not stand at the front of a garden while people watched me become someone's wife. Instead, I signed a cancellation notice. I took back a dress. I closed an account. And for the first time in my life, when my family reached for something I had built, paid for, protected, and carried, the answer did not come from my mouth. It came from my signature.